polls have closed now in 2 states, in Indiana and Kentucky. And at 7 o'clock at this hour, we've got a rush of votes closing in some important states. There they are all together. We've got 66 electoral votes. We're looking for a total of 270 for a win tonight. Florida, Georgia, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia. So that's what's closing at this time. We want to show you the national map now so that we can show you what's going on. We'll be coloring tonight the states that Bush wins in blue. Clinton will be in red, and Ross Perot will have that kind of neutral color for you. We do have some projections that we can call at this hour. Let's begin, and it's good news now for Bill Clinton. He is the projected winner in the state of Georgia with 13 electoral votes. It last went for a Democrat in 1980. Favorite son, Jimmy Carter, of course. That's a very big win for Bill Clinton in the state of Georgia, 13 electoral votes. In New Hampshire, he said, if you give me a chance in this election, I'll be with you till the last dog dies. The dog has not yet died, and neither has Bill Clinton. He wins tonight in New Hampshire, 4 electoral votes, an important win in New England. That's a staunch Republican part of the country. Vermont, same thing, right next door in New England. A very good sign for Bill Clinton. So on our map now, we'll begin to color in the maps, the states that Bill Clinton has won. Red in Georgia, also up there, the tiny states, but important to him, of New Hampshire first, and then Vermont. It was in New Hampshire that he survived. Now, how does that translate into electoral votes? 270 required. Bill Clinton has got 20 so far. No states have shown up yet for George Bush or for Ross Perot. We'll also want to remind you, this is the national vote as we have it. 2% counted so far. Bush with a small lead at this time. That is inconsequential. So, John Chancellor, as we look at the first returns that we're getting, that's very heartening news for Bill Clinton. I think Dan Quayle is breathing a lot easier at this hour. We're now able to project that the state of Indiana, which is Dan Quayle's home state, of course, won by President Bush tonight, 12 electoral votes. That is rock-ribbed Republican territory out there. Last voted in 1964, and it was a long time before that they voted Republican. It was in 1964 for Lyndon Johnson. So the state of Indiana now goes blue for President Bush. As you can see, Georgia, Vermont, and New Hampshire are already colored in for Bill Clinton. What does that mean in terms of electoral votes? 20-12 at this hour. There is the possibility that Ross Perot could win an electoral vote without winning a state. But good evening once again. It is now 7:30 in the East, and we've had polls close in states that represent 126 electoral votes. A reminder that 270 are required. Polls now closing in North Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia. Those top 2 states especially pivotal in this election. We'll be watching them carefully. We are still not able to make a call in the state of Florida, for example. President Bush is counting on that heavily. The state of Kentucky, which will be hotly contested during the course of this race. We want to show you what we have at this hour, however, because we have been able to make some calls around the country. We color the states in red for Bill Clinton and blue for George Bush, and up there in the corner, those should be red, Vermont and New Hampshire. We had called them earlier. There's the paintbrush. It finally came through. We've got the little person in the back, and they're doing the best that they can. They don't always get to color them as quickly as we'd like them to from time to time. What does that mean in terms of the electoral? Well, we can now project another state for Bill Clinton, West Virginia. This is solid Democratic territory. Bill Clinton would have been expected to win West Virginia. In 2 out of the 3 last elections, it has gone Democratic. Bill Clinton gets the 5 electoral votes in West Virginia. Back to the map again. There they are. Everything now in the appropriate colors. Red for Clinton, blue, that's Indiana, for George Bush, Dan Quayle's home state. What does that mean in terms of the electoral vote? Well, let us show you, because that's the number that we'll want to watch very carefully all evening long here. 270 required. Bill Clinton now with 25. George Bush with 12. There are some big states still out there, of course, that have just closed. The national vote, that is the popular vote, as it's being counted slowly. 2% of it is in so far. George Bush holds a 4-point lead. And it'll be interesting to see if Ross Perot can stay at that 16-point mark, because if... Good evening once again. We're now getting to the crucial part of the evening with a substantial number of polls closing in states around the country, representing altogether 205 electoral votes. And the way it's shaping up right now, this could be another passage year as it was in 1960 when the torch was passed to a new generation, as it was in 1980 when a new Republican Party took over with Ronald Reagan. Here are the polls closing. As you can see, all of those states now, the polls are closing at this hour. And based on our analysis of interviews with the voters that we have seen in many of those states, we can now make these projections for Bill Clinton. All good news for him. 23 electoral votes in Pennsylvania, In Illinois, 22 electoral votes. The battleground state of Michigan, which has gone Republican the last 3 times, 18 electoral votes. In New Jersey, 15 electoral votes. Bill Clinton the winner there. In Massachusetts, which has been safely for the Democrats in recent elections, that goes to Bill Clinton's column. Missouri, 10. Maryland, 11. Connecticut, 8. Now, Connecticut is the ancestral home of the George Bush family, obviously. And Bill Clinton is our projected winner in Connecticut tonight as well. And this will not go over well with the Bush family. They, of course, have their summer home at Walker's Point in Maine. We are projecting that Maine is the winner for Bill Clinton. Now, one of those electoral votes could go to Ross Perot, because in Maine and Nebraska, they divide their electoral votes by the congressional districts, and there's a possibility that Ross Perot could pick off one of those electoral votes, but then, after all, he spent $60 million. He ought to get something for it. In the District of Columbia, which has been safely Democratic as well, 3 electoral votes to Bill Clinton. What does that mean now on our national map? We want to show you as we begin to color that in red. As you can see, the lone state that we've been able to call for President Bush tonight is the state of Indiana, Dan Quayle's home state, and it's been one of the most safely Republican states in this century for the Republicans. Electoral votes, 270 required. Bill Clinton now beginning very swiftly to close in on that number with 151. And remember, it's only 8 o'clock in the evening in the East. Polls will remain open across the country. We remind you to go vote. Let's take a look now at the national popular vote as it has been counted so far. Only 4% of it in so far. George Bush can take some comfort, some solace in the fact that he continues to lead in that, but by a very small margin. And that, of course, if these current trends continue, that too will change during the course of the evening. As you look at that map, Bill Clinton is in red, but George Bush is bleeding, in a manner of speaking. Now, Kentucky politicians used to be fond of saying that their state was the home of fast horses, fine bourbon, and beautiful women, and then they decided that was no longer politically correct. We can tell you at this hour that Kentucky is the home of Bill Clinton and 8 electoral votes that go into his column. This is a big, big win for Bill Clinton. That was one of those battleground middle border states. He goes into the Clinton column after having voted with the Republicans the last 3 times. And as you can see, we color in the state of Kentucky. Only Indiana so far tonight for George Bush, according to our projection. What does that mean in terms of electoral votes? In Kentucky, there are 8 altogether. Bill Clinton now has climbed up to 159. He has been on a steady ascendancy. And George Bush is stuck at 12 at this hour with only Indiana in his column. The popular vote still at 4%. George Bush continues to hold a narrow lead. That will be changing given these projections that we are seeing so far tonight. So that's an important win for Bill Clinton. It was a state that they both contested very strongly. Tim Russert, some thoughts? Here's some good news for President Bush now. We're able to project the state of South Carolina. It's 8 electoral votes for George Bush. So on our big national map at this hour, we'll give Bush a second state that we can color in blue. Down south in South Carolina, that's the home of Strom Thurmond, of course. And the electoral vote then ticks up for President Bush to 20, 158 for Bill Clinton, 270 are required. We now have enough polls closed to get to that number. We'll see how long it takes. Let's take a look at the national vote. We're still holding at 4% in the popular vote counted so far, only a point separating Bush and Clinton. Ross Perot holding at 15%. If he continues there, of course, that would be a very strong showing for a third-party candidate. But after all, this is the man who gave us slow dancing Lawrence Welk music, $1,000 briefcases, and alligator shoes. Big surprise that only one state is closing its polls at 8:30 tonight. I don't know how they had time to vote in Arkansas. They've been so busy celebrating in advance of all this. 6 electoral votes. The polls just closed. We're able to make a projection in Arkansas based on our interviews and the analysis of those interviews with voters as they left the polls today. Bill Clinton, hometown guy, 5 times elected governor of that state, grew up there, became a Rhodes Scholar, Boys Nation, did all the right things in the eyes of most Arkansas voters, and today they gave him their votes as he ran for president of the United States, the first man from that state to do so. What does that mean in terms of electoral votes now? This is the important number, of course, 164 for Bill Clinton, 270 required. George Bush with only South Carolina and Indiana on his asset side, as Ross Perot might say. Texas, Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, and Virginia representing 105 electoral votes. All the polls have closed in those states, but they are still too close to call. John, we have a projection. Good news for the president. He was able to hang on to the state of Oklahoma in the Southwest. NBC now is able to project the state of Oklahoma with its 8 electoral votes. That goes into the Bush column. We want to tell you what that means on our map. First of all, blue. As we begin to move into stronger Bush territory, he could take heart in all of that. He gets up to 28 electoral votes at this hour, with Bill Clinton at 164. And the national vote, we're now up to 8%. And George Bush continues to hold a 1-point lead over Bill Clinton. No surprise here, NBC News now projecting the state of Tennessee. The winner there, Bill Clinton. It is the home state of his running mate, Al Gore, a senator from that state. They were called the Yuppie ticket, the double Bubba ticket, which didn't quite fit. Somehow they strike me more as the student body president, the football captain. Anyhow, 11 electoral votes in Tennessee. That goes into the Clinton column now. It is beginning to fill in that map in red for Clinton and Gore. What does that mean in terms of electoral votes? 175 for Bill Clinton, 28 for George Bush, none for Perot so far. The national vote now, we've got 10% of it in, and Clinton now has eased into the lead, and if this trend continues, that will remain very much the same, and we'll be watching how big the popular vote margin may be. Here are the states in which the polls have just now closed at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 99 electoral votes altogether. Arizona, Colorado, Louisiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And George Bush had to have a good chunk of those states to stay competitive tonight. And the fact of the matter is he is not getting them. We're now prepared to make more projections for Bill Clinton that will take him close to the 270 marker. He is the projected winner in New York. No surprise there. 33 electoral votes. That's one of Clinton's most important states. It stayed rock solid for him. Minnesota has been in the Democratic column. 10 electoral votes there. Bill Clinton is the winner there as well. It voted for Michael Dukakis last time around. Here's a winner in the Rocky Mountain states. Colorado, 8 electoral votes. Perot was a big factor, taking away from George Bush. And now let's go to New Mexico. 5 electoral votes in New Mexico. Last voted Democratic in 1964. It had gone with the winner every time but once since becoming a state 80 years ago. It went with Gerald Ford in 1976. Rhode Island, only 4 electoral votes. They all go to Bill Clinton at this hour. And the state of Delaware, which has been another one of those bellwether states, voting with the winner every time since 1952. Tonight it believes that the winner will be Bill Clinton. It has given him 3 electoral votes. So as we show you on the map now, all of those states will go red for Bill Clinton. The blue states belong to George Bush. What does that mean in terms of what's happening for George Bush? Well, he can win one state that we can put into his column at the closing at 9 o'clock now, and that is the state of Nebraska with its 5 electoral votes. Nebraska last voted Democratic in 64 for Lyndon Johnson. Here it is in the map now. The blue belongs to George Bush, of course. All the red red parts of the map will go to Bill Clinton. The electoral vote, we're now 238 electoral votes. As you can see, 270 are required. Bill Clinton now is within easy reach. There are some big states that are still out there that he is very much in the hunt for. Back now, it's 20 after 9 here in the East, and Bill Clinton seems to be marching inexorably to the magic number of 270 electoral votes. But George Bush is able to hang on to the Old Dominion state in Virginia, solid Republican territory. George Bush, the winner in Virginia tonight, 13 electoral votes. So on our map now, another blue state for George Bush, but it is almost totally surrounded. The outpost that George Bush has been able to get tonight, totally surrounded by Clinton states. In the electoral count, 238 for Bill Clinton, 46 for George Bush. And Ross Perot has yet to win one, although he might yet in Maine. We don't know. 15% of the popular vote has been counted, and Bill Clinton now is out in front of that. We'll be watching to see what the margins are tonight. We believe, although we cannot, polls that are closing now at this hour, 10 o'clock, as we move across the West. Idaho, Iowa, Montana, Nevada, and Utah, even though we continue to make projections and the electoral vote continues to count up, and that you get the electoral vote in your state by adding up the senators and the representatives. We do want to remind you again that the polls are open, especially in the Pacific time zone in many of the mountain states, and you should exercise your right to vote. Bill Clinton now is the winner in another state that has been solidly Democratic in recent years, and that's the state of Iowa. Iowa has dropped in unemployment in recent years, but Bill Clinton gets the 7 electoral votes from the state of Iowa. George Bush now picks up a couple of states out west that he had counted on to be safe states. They turned out to be that indeed. 5 electoral votes from Utah, and also next door from the state of Idaho. 4 electoral votes there for George Bush. So we'll color in those states for you now. Let's go to, we've got Iowa in there. Let's put in Utah and Idaho. Blue for George Bush. Not as many as he would like. He's going to be surrounded before this night is over by a lot more red states than blue states, although we still have big ones to call in Texas, as you can see, and down south. So the electoral total now, 254 for Bill Clinton, 55 for George Bush. So far, none for Ross Perot. Here is the national count of the vote. We're approaching 30% now. 4-point lead for Bill Clinton. Ross Perot is holding strong in the 16-17 range. It may a call that will bring some solace to George Bush. The state of Alabama, 9 electoral votes. Should have been a safe state for him. He had to wait for much of the evening to get it colored blue in our electoral map. So Alabama in the deep south goes for George Bush. Last went Democratic for Jimmy Carter in 1976. That means that George Bush is now up to 264, as you can see, electoral votes. Bill Clinton is just 16 away from the magic number of 270. We're now over a third of the popular vote counted so far. Bill Clinton with a 4-point lead. Ross Perot is holding firm at 17. Most of the polls in Texas closed at 8, but some, I'm told now, are probably open until 9:30 Central Time. Some of the polls down there, almost all of them, have closed. That's probably true. I have another state that we want to call for Bill Clinton. It puts him just moments away now from winning 270 electoral votes. He wins the state of Wisconsin, which took a little longer than we anticipated tonight. It went Democratic in 76 and 88, so we color Wisconsin red now. Solidly in the Midwest, he's just 5 electoral votes away from winning. Bill Clinton, the 2 Dakotas could do that, form a combination of Montana, and then, of course, we still have California to come in with its big 54 electoral votes. So he's home free. 40% of the vote has been counted so far. Bill Clinton now with a 5-point lead. Ross Perot with 17 points. And a lot more to say. 46 years of age, the man from Hope, Arkansas, the new president of the United States. Bill Clinton, the projected winner tonight in Ohio with its 21 electoral votes. That puts him comfortably over the top. California yet to come. He'll go well past the 270 required. Bill Clinton, who a year ago at this time was a little-known governor, 5 terms in that state. A lot of people believed a number of occasions that he was out of this race. He stayed in, and he has defeated George Bush. Moreover, he has broken a Republican hold on the White House that has gone on for 12 years now, going all the way back to 1968, only 1 4-year term for Democrats. There they are, 46 years of age and 44, I think. Here's what's going on in Little Rock tonight. We're back now, and we have a whole run of presidential projections for you. They all belong to Bill Clinton. He has passed the magic number of 270. The governor of Arkansas, who was once described as being 40 at 16 and then 16 at 40 in terms of his behavior during those ages, he is now elected president of the United States according to our projection. So let us show you what is going on now in California. 54 electoral votes. We anticipated that from the outset. Bill Clinton, the winner in California. Washington, 11 electoral votes up in the Pacific Northwest. They counted that as the cornerstone of the new Democratic Party. Also in Oregon, 7 electoral votes. Bill Clinton, the winner there. Hawaii, safe Democratic territory, 4 electoral votes for Bill Clinton. We color those in now. Red across the western rim, the Pacific rim of the United States for Bill Clinton, and just a few blue spots on that map for George Bush. 362 electoral votes so far, 64 for George Bush. And now here is the popular vote as we have it so far. We're beginning to climb toward the halfway mark. Bill Clinton is our projected winner. He's got a 5-point spread there. And the vote that has been counted so far, Ross Perot is holding at 17 and has been elected president of the United States. But George Bush continues to pick up states tonight. We can project in the Midwest, the state of Kansas for George Bush with its 6 electoral votes. It's voted Democratic in 64 and 32. It's always been a Republican state in years after that. So we'll put Kansas in blue for the president's got a little run going there now in the center part of the country. Not nearly enough, of course. And what does that mean in terms of electoral votes? Bill Clinton well beyond 270. George Bush hopes to crack 100, obviously, and go well beyond that and do the best that he can tonight. That's where that stands, the electoral vote. Now we're approaching 50% in the popular or raw vote. Bill Clinton still with a 5-point lead, and Ross Perot is hanging in there now. There is just a smattering of good news for George Bush tonight. We have a couple of more states that we can put in his column now. The state of Mississippi, with its 7 electoral votes, took a lot longer for us to call that than we anticipated. Big relief to Clark Reed, who is the Bush chairman in that state. And in North Dakota as well, 3 electoral votes will go to George Bush. So let's take a look now at our map. Most of the Bush states, of course, in the South and in the nation's heartland, in the grain belt up there, North Dakota down through Kansas and Nebraska and Oklahoma. What does that mean in terms of electoral votes? Well, Bill Clinton is safely home, having passed 270. George Bush now at 80. He wants very much to crack 100. He has an opportunity to do that with some of the states that are still outstanding. Big part of this race tonight, however, is Ross Perot down there at the bottom of your screen with 18% of the nationwide popular vote and running at 20% in a number of states across the country. The Bush people believe that the Perot folks, we want to call another state for George Bush. He'll be happy to hear this. This is the adopted state of Jim Baker. In a way, he's got a fishing camp out there and a place that he likes to go to. He may even retire there. In the state of Wyoming, George Bush goes into his column. That's the home state of Dick Cheney as well, and Alan Simpson. And those are our 3 unapologetic Republicans if ever we heard of them. 83 electoral votes now for George Bush as he closes in on 100, but still well short of where he'd like to be tonight. This is the national vote as we approach the 2/3 mark now. A 5-point lead for Bill Clinton. Ross Perot continues to hold at 18 points. It'll take. Bill Clinton is the new president of the United States, but George Bush retains his dignity in his adopted home state of Texas. NBC News now projects that Texas, in its 32 electoral votes, will go into George Bush's column. He's in Houston tonight. He has said in the past that he would retire there. Also in the state of South Dakota, which has been strong Republican territory the last 3 times, George Bush, the winner of the 3 electoral votes in the great state of South Dakota. So this now is how the electoral, this is how the map is shaping up as we color in blue. First Texas and then South Dakota. The president just could have expanded the middle stripe of the country. He would have done a lot better tonight. He has 118 electoral votes. Bill Clinton well past the margin needed for victory with 362. The national vote, now 70% of it has been counted. Bill Clinton with a 5-point spread. Ross Perot holding steady at 18. That's a very impressive showing for him tonight. And if it stays there, it goes a little bit higher. He'll be getting a lot of high marks for all that. There are a lot of states that are just too close to call, and we'll show you why, beginning in the state of Florida. It was one of the great battleground states. More than 80% of the vote is in. And as you can see, only about 20,000 votes separate George Bush and Bill Clinton 1 percentage point. That's very tight indeed. North Carolina, 91% of the vote is in. It's even closer there. In the percentages, it's a flat tie. And about 2,000 votes, a little more than that, separate the two. In Arizona, 11% of the vote has been counted. Remember, this is the home state of Barry Goldwater, and we've got a race that is too close to call. 4,000 votes separating them there in North Carolina. You've got some, well, we have a new era before America. 2 baby boomers, 2 gentlemen from the South, highly educated and determined to change this country in the way they spelled out for the past 11 months or so. That's our election coverage on Decision 92. Katie and Bryant will be back tomorrow, and we'll have a lot of work ahead of us as we cover this new passage in American history, 1992.
polls have closed in 2 states, in Indiana and Kentucky, and already, gentlemen, we have a little bit of news, and that is in Kentucky, we are able to say that it is undecided. With what, 15% or more of the vote in, it is now too close to call. Ken, do you want to explain the difference between those two terms?
The difference between those two terms, Judy, is that it's undecided when we open it up. We don't have enough votes at all. But after it's been, we have 15% of the vote in, at least 15% of the vote in, or it has remained undecided for an hour. We make it too close to call. Then we know the race is going to be really tight.
And in the Hoosier State, Indiana, the presidential, Clinton and Dole, CNN is still saying that that race is undecided. 270 electoral votes are needed, and so far in CNN's election night coverage, the president has 32, Bob Dole, nothing.
CNN coverage of Election 96. Live from CNN Center, here are Bernard Shaw, Judy Woodruff, Bill Schneider, and Ken Bodie.
So we're off and running. We have electoral votes up on the board, and here we go.
That's right. We're going to see what's going on in some of these states that are closing in this hour.
Looking at Florida now, with 25 electoral votes, CNN declares that President Clinton has won this very important state.
Major victory. This state hasn't voted Democratic since 1976. A lot of senior citizens in Florida, and the Medicare issue might have been big.
The polls have also just closed in the state of New Hampshire. Bill Clinton won it by just a hair in 1992. And Ken Bodie?
Judy, he started his last day of his last campaign in New Hampshire. It was very emotional for Bill Clinton, and he pretty much knew he would win this one.
Looking at Vermont, a declared winner for those 3 electoral votes, Bill Clinton.
Vermont hadn't voted Democratic since 1964 until 92. It went for Clinton then. It's going for Clinton now. It's a Republican state, but a liberal Republican state.
Georgia, it's very close in the Peach State. Bill Clinton won it barely in 92, and it's still undecided, Ken, at this hour.
That's right. He did win it barely in 92. In 1992, it was a 1-point state, and it's shaping up to be something like a 1-point state again tonight.
In Thomas Jefferson State, Virginia, 13 electoral votes. This race undecided at this hour.
Virginia has not voted for a Democrat for president since 1964. It didn't vote for Jimmy Carter. And remember, this is a big tobacco state.
And another southern undecided, South Carolina. This is a state that the Dole people were counting on, Ken Bodie.
Well, I think it's undecided because it's so soon after the polls close. You're absolutely right. The Dole people were counting on South Carolina, and I bet they still are.
2 other states looking at them quickly. Kentucky, this one is too close to call. And in Indiana, we're saying it is still undecided.
This hour, let's take a look at that all-important electoral map and what we have. It's not a lot, but we have something. It's Bill Clinton has nailed down 32 electoral votes. At this hour, Bob Dole, nothing. But the night is young, the night's early, and those numbers will rise as the minutes go by. The polls have closed in 3 more states at 7:30 in the East. At this point, Bill Clinton has 58 electoral votes. Bob Dole, nothing yet.
CNN coverage of Election 96. Live from CNN Center, here are Judy Woodruff, Bernard Shaw, Bill Schneider, and Ken Bodie.
And the biggest electoral prize at this half hour, we can tell you, is the state of Ohio. CNN calls that the state of Ohio has been won by President Clinton. This is a big victory, Ken Bodie, for the Democrats.
That is true. No Republican has ever been elected without carrying Ohio, and it's also further bad news because for the last 30 years, this state has voted for the winning candidate.
CNN declares that Bill Clinton has won West Virginia's 5 electoral votes.
Not a big surprise. West Virginia is reliably Democratic. Every congressman, senator, the governor, and both houses of the state legislature controlled by the Democrats.
Polls have also just closed in the state of North Carolina, but at this hour, it is undecided among the 3 gentlemen you see there on the screen.
Judy, this is fairly typical for North Carolina. This is a generally Republican state in presidential races, but George Bush won this state by less than 1% last time, his very closest state.
These next two are going to surprise, if not shock you. First, in Indiana, CNN says that this one is too close to call. And in Kentucky, again, 8 electoral votes in Kentucky, too close to call. And look at the percentage of reports.
Here are 3 states where the polls closed half an hour ago, as yet undecided. Georgia, the Peach State. Virginia, the Old Dominion, still undecided. And South Carolina, in the presidential contest, undecided.
Now let's move over to the electoral map to show you what we have so far. President Clinton leading Bob Dole, 58 electoral votes. The magic number is 270. Remember this number, 240 electoral votes needed in this election tonight. And CNN is declaring that in Texas, the winner of Texas's 32 electoral votes is Bob Dole.
Bob Dole was counting on Texas, a state that hasn't gone Democratic since 1976, and where Republicans have made big inroads. If he didn't carry Texas, he wouldn't have had a prayer.
Pennsylvania, another big electoral vote state. Bill Clinton, the winner.
This state has voted Republican at state levels, Democrat for president recently, and it's not been wrong in 30 years.
In the land of Lincoln, 22 electoral votes. President Clinton winning the state.
Talk about a bellwether state. This is one, too. All winning candidates this century have carried Illinois, with only 2 exceptions. Woodrow Wilson in 16 and Carter in 76 did not carry Illinois.
Another Midwestern industrial state in Bill Clinton's corner, Michigan, and its 18 electoral votes.
One of the most memorable moments of this campaign was when Bob Dole went back to that Battle Creek Veterans Hospital where he spent 2 years recovering from his war wounds. Michigan, however, did not vote with Dole.
In New Jersey, CNN declares President Clinton taking over this state as he did in 1992.
Bob Dole used Governor Whitman's come-from-behind victory as a model for his campaign, and the fact that she promised and delivered a very big tax cut, but it didn't work.
The state of Massachusetts for Bill Clinton, all 12 electoral votes. Missouri, the show-me state for the president, for Bill Clinton. Tennessee, the volunteer state, 11 electoral votes in Bill Clinton's corner. Maryland, a state that has gone Democratic, now has gone Democratic once again. And Connecticut, 8 electoral votes for Bill Clinton.
Bob Dole has something to cheer about in Oklahoma. He is winning that state tonight, along with its 8 electoral votes. And in Kansas, guess what? The home state of this former senator goes to Bob Dole. In Maine, President Clinton takes off 4 electoral votes there, as he does in Delaware, 3 electoral votes there, and no surprise, in the District of Columbia, the president winning handily 3 electoral votes.
The polls have just closed also in the state of Mississippi, but it is undecided. We do not have a result yet from Mississippi. And Alabama has just gone for Bob Dole. We declare, CNN declares Bob Dole the winner in the state of Alabama. This is a place that President Clinton had campaigned in just a few days ago. Here is a look at this hour, just a moment after 8 o'clock in the East. Bill Clinton, 198 electoral votes, those states that you see in blue. Bob Dole, 55. And the big one on that map, gentlemen, is Texas, and that's one that comes sweet to Bob Dole.
That's right.
CNN has made the call that Bob Dole won Indiana. You just saw that. It is 8:30 in the East, 5:30 on the Pacific time zone, and at this hour, Bill Clinton has won 204 electoral votes, 66 away from the magic number 207.
Concern, you can't say. All right, now Arkansas, the president's home state. Add Arkansas to the growing number of states going the president's way this night, as Ken and Bill alluded to. His early and overwhelming success was expected, of course, but at least one prize must seem especially sweet: the Sunshine State, Florida. CNN declares a winner in the Tar Heel State. Bob Dole has won North Carolina.
North Carolina voted for George Bush by the narrowest of margins last time, and the Republicans have retained it.
It's a narrow.
William Jefferson Clinton has a job for 4 more years.
He becomes the first Democrat since Franklin Roosevelt to win re-election to the White House.
CNN coverage of Election 96. Live from CNN Center, here are Bernard Shaw, Judy Woodruff, Bill Schneider, and Ken Bodie.
Well, he has 4 more years, but that's only part of the story this election night, but it's clearly the lead at this hour.
He has won the presidency. We don't know what kind of mandate he has. That depends on what happens in Congress and whether he gets over 50%. But look at where he was 2 years ago and where he is now. 275, that's 5 votes over a majority. 2 years ago, Bill Clinton was toast. I mean, no one would have bet on his re-election. He was finished. He had lost both houses of Congress for the first time in 40 years. This is one of the great miraculous comebacks in American history.
One of the main reasons, in fact, perhaps the main reason we're able to call Bill Clinton the winner at this hour is New York. It has the second biggest electoral prize, Ken Bodie.
33 electoral votes. It's not really the purpose of putting a vice presidential candidate on the ticket to help you win his home state, but Jack Kemp didn't help with New York.
Going to the Dairy State, which has a Republican governor, that didn't stop Bill Clinton from winning Wisconsin's electoral votes.
Wisconsin did go Democratic for Clinton in '92. It went for Dukakis and for Carter twice. It's voted Democratic a lot. It's a very strongly Catholic state.
Another state Bill Clinton felt pretty confident about, Minnesota. It's the only state to vote Democratic in 6 of the last 7 elections, Ken.
That's right, 10 electoral votes. The only Democrat to lose this state in modern times was the neighbor, George McGovern from South Dakota in '72.
The polls just closed in Louisiana. We're still saying at this moment, this one is undecided.
This is a southern state that went for Clinton in '92. Most states are voting the way they did back then. It's very heavily black and also the most Catholic state in the country, in the South.
Arizona, the longest string of consecutive presidential votes. It last voted Democratic in 1948. It is undecided, though, at this hour.
Bill Clinton had fun playing in Arizona, bringing his new AARP card out there and talking to the seniors in Arizona about Medicare. He tried hard to put this state into play, and he apparently succeeded.
Now, let's go to Colorado first. That is undecided at this hour. In Nebraska, which is coming up next. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Let's go to New Mexico. CNN declares that President Clinton has won New Mexico's 5 electoral votes, and he has done ditto in Rhode Island. Also a winner tonight for the president. 4 electoral votes there.
North Dakota, undecided. The polls have just closed in this state with 3 electoral votes, but still no winner. South Dakota, the neighboring state to the south, of course, 3 electoral votes, undecided at this hour. But we can call Bob Dole the winner in the state of Wyoming. And let's take a look at the electoral map at this hour. 267 votes, electoral votes, we can call in Bill Clinton's corner to 92 for Bob Dole. And we just saw pictures a moment ago of the Dole headquarters in Washington, Bernie.
Where Candy?
2 Senate races to call, and 1 state in the presidency, and that is the state of Louisiana. It gave President Clinton in 1992 his biggest margin in the South outside of Arkansas, and we are saying that Bill Clinton has won Louisiana in 1996, and it's 9 electoral votes.
Now taking you to the all-important map that matters most of all in this presidential race. President Clinton at this hour has 284 electoral votes. Challenging Bob Dole has 96 electoral votes. And we continue the count.
But as good a shape the president is in these electoral votes, his coattails were not long enough, Bernie, as you said earlier tonight, to help the Democrat hang on to the Senate seat in Arkansas.
Clinton has gone over the electoral top for re-election, 291 to 105, but don't let that deter you from voting in 5 western states.
CNN coverage of Election 96. Live from CNN Center, here are Bernard Shaw, Judy Woodruff, Bill Schneider, and Ken Bodie.
And if you're still voting, please remember the 5 states I alluded to: California, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. Bill Clinton reelected.
That's right. 5 states. The polls have just closed in those 5 states. We're going to tell you shortly what happened, or at least what we think happened in several of them.
Right. So far, this looks pretty much like a status quo election to me. People are reelecting the president, and all the incumbents just about have been reelected all across the country for the Senate. We'll see what happens in the House as the night goes on.
We haven't mentioned yet Ross Perot. Let me just tell you right now briefly that he is pulling in the high single digits basically across the country, a little bit in the low double digits here and there.
Okay, now we have some states to declare, states with the polls having just closed. In the Hawkeye state, Iowa, President Clinton does as he did in '92. He wins.
In 1992, the Iowa vote exactly mirrored the national vote. 43% for Clinton, 37 Bush, and 19 for Perot.
Utah. This is a state that gave Bill Clinton his worst results in 1992, and once again, it's done the same. Bob Dole, the winner.
Worst results, I'm not sure yet, but it's not been a Democratic state since LBJ in 1964.
Bob Dole winning ditto in Idaho. 4 electoral votes, Bill.
Ditto in Idaho and Utah. Hasn't voted Democratic since 1964. Clinton only got 28% of the vote in 1992 in Idaho.
And Nevada, undecided. This is a state that was, I think Bill Clinton was the first Democrat in 28 years to carry it the last time. We don't know what's going to happen this time.
Well, our crack research team, Judy, tells me that Nevada has the highest divorce rate in the nation. And I don't know what that means exactly in terms of presidential voting.
Well, let's move on to Montana then. We have to say Montana right now, undecided.
Big surprise in '92 when Montana voted for Bill Clinton. A lot of people think Perot's very high vote there, 26%, might have taken a lot of votes from the Republicans and helped Bill Clinton carry the state. With a lower Perot vote, can he do it this time?
And the state of Kentucky, President Clinton, the winner. This state keeps up its record of voting with the winner. What, again, over the last, this will now be 8 elections it's voted
That's
with
right.
the
It's
winner.
a genuine bellwether presidential state. Bob Dole said earlier this year, if Bob Dole wins Kentucky, I'll be president. He's not going to win Kentucky, and he's not going to be president.
And we can report to you that Bob Dole is the winner in the state of Virginia. 13 electoral votes. This is a state that George Bush won in '92, and it's a state that is, frankly, dependably Republican, but it was a toss-up for a long time this year.
That's right. The rule is holding. This is a state that went for Bush in '92, and it's gone for Dole in '96. And it's also, of course, a big tobacco state, which probably hurt Bill Clinton.
It's the last time.
Hey, thanks, Frank. First to the West Coast. In California, CNN is declaring at this moment that President Clinton has won California's juicy 54 electoral votes, a state he worked very, very hard and repeatedly.
Went there almost 30 times. Bob Dole put everything he had into the last few weeks in California, spent $1.5 million a week. It didn't work.
The state of Washington, we can also say that Bill Clinton has won. This is a state that he won in 1992, Ken Bodie, and more good news with the Democrats.
It's a state that's become more and more Democratic in presidential voting as time goes on, as are all of the states down this Pacific Rim: Washington, Oregon, California.
11 electoral votes in Washington, and in Oregon, CNN declares at 11 o'clock tonight, President Clinton has won the state of Oregon. 7 electoral votes in Oregon going to Mr. Clinton.
Strong environmental constituency in Oregon, and Clinton was strong on that issue. Perot did very well last time in Oregon. He got 1/4 of the vote, but this time Clinton kept it as he did in '92.
And the state of Hawaii, a state that has gone Republican only twice since it became a state in 1959 for Bill Clinton.
Not many electoral votes on Hawaii, but again, it's like all of these states on the Pacific Rim. They are becoming more and more Democratic in presidential voting.
Coming back to North Dakota, CNN declares that Bob Dole has won the state of North Dakota with 3 electoral votes.
North Dakota is not on the Pacific Rim. It's an interior state. Hasn't voted for a Democrat since 1964, and it didn't do it this time. Voted for Bush in '92 and Clinton in '96. And Dole in '96.
Okay. Frank, we have, incidentally, if you're keeping track and wondering about 6 states, we indeed have not called 6 states. We have not called Arizona. We have not called Colorado, Georgia, South Dakota, Nevada, or Montana. And also, people are still voting up there in Alaska.
State to call for Bob Dole, and that is South Dakota. This is a state that George Bush won, the Republicans won in 1992, so it's not a big surprise, but it's been dangling out there, and we just are able to call it just now.
Now, let's go back up to the Northeast in New Hampshire. Robert Smith, the incumbent Republican, he hung on by his fingernails, and he's going to be going back to Washington. Bob's.
You can see that's something he's been talking about on the trail. Now let's look at the electoral map, Bernie.
Bill Clinton has 375 electoral votes, Bob Dole 135. CNN shows that the president has won 30 states plus the District of Columbia, and Senator Dole, Jack Kemp, having won 16 states so far. We still have not called the states of Colorado, Georgia, Nevada, and Montana.
This is already an improvement by 5 electoral votes over what Bill Clinton won in 1992. In 1992, he had 370 to George Bush's 168. We don't know whether it's going to go higher because of those states that are still outstanding.
There's so much more to tell you about this election night. Frank Sesno is standing by to take us to the congressional desk in the very latest. We go to Frank when we come back.
Clinton's over the top, but as you just saw, there are still 4 states outstanding that we do not know the results of, and we will wait to see. He's over the 270, well over the 270. He's at, what, 375? Right. But, and better than he had in 1992. I just want to say that this man, and we've pointed it out already, has come back from what was the most disastrous loss for a first-term president, really since Herbert Hoover. When you look at what the Republicans did in 1994, he has come back to win re-election.
Judy, there are 3 things that we've been looking at all night long. One is the Electoral College, which is a landslide. It could be as many as 400 votes in the Electoral College when the final states get in that are now too close to call. The second thing is, does he get 50%? And it looks as though he's going to nudge up past 50% in this thing. And the third is, does the House and the Senate go Democratic? And that's the one place where Clinton fell down. And that is the one thing that Bill Clinton is going to have to live with this entire next 4 years, or at least 2 of the 4 years that he's got a Republican House, a Republican Senate. He's got Newt Gingrich, who really did win tonight as well, given that he was an issue for the Democrats.
The most remarkable thing I've seen tonight is that all the states that went for Clinton last time went for him this time. He only added 2 states, Florida and Arizona, that went for Bush last time, now went for Clinton. There's no mystery why that happened. Those are states with a large population of elderly voters who are probably very frightened over the Medicare issue. This is an election where Jesse Helms, the most conservative member of the Senate, and Paul Wellstone, the most liberal member of the Senate, got reelected. The House and the Senate remained about the same, so Republicans can come out claiming a victory. No net change in the Republican governorships. How did the voters vote in the end? They split 50-50 over Bill Clinton. Net bottom line here is, I think it was a status quo election. People were not angry for once. They did not vote for change. They voted to keep things about the way they are, not for gridlock, but to force both parties to try to work with each other.
And if I may just add one other point before Bernie does, I get goose pimples every time we have an election in this country because, frankly, we pass the power. It's in the hands of the president and the elected officials. It goes back to the people. They have their chance to throw the rascals out or to return someone to power. They have made their choice. They've made their decision. And not a drop of blood was shed. And this is one of the few countries in the world where that can happen. And it's, you know, it's exciting that we live in a country like the one we live in.
Not only no blood drop, but no shots fired either. Ken Bodie making the point about, and you, Judy, that the president made this comeback, especially after the disaster of 1994. The Republican Party actually helped William Jefferson Clinton in that comeback, especially when they voted to shut down Congress. The American people said the Republicans went too far. We did not send you to Washington to shut down the federal government. Bill Clinton used that partly as a springboard, and he was able to keep the liberal wing of his party placated or sedated, and he was able to move to the center and appeal to more conservative Democrats. So he has been re-elected tonight. The question is, how effectively will he be able to lead as the 105th Congress goes in January, controlled by the party that controlled it when they went home, the Republican Party? One final note. Judy and I, all of us, Ken Bodie, Bill Schneider, we've received a lot of mail. We thank you for the mail, and we thank you for the phone calls. A lot of Democrats have criticized us in our coverage, and conversely, a lot of Republicans have criticized us in our coverage. Never once in our coverage of this campaign story have we played favorites. We don't play favorites. We hope that all the efforts of the men and women here at CNN were conducive to your making an informed decision in the polls. For all of us and for hundreds of people you'll never know and never see, that concludes our coverage. And we leave you with sights and sounds of this election campaign 96. Behind us is the atrium here at CNN Center. And behind us, these buildings house all of the networks of CNN. And we leave you with these pictures.